Everybody, thank you so much for coming today. I know most everybody here, but my name's Sean. I am the music salon here, and it's a complete honor and privilege to have this guy here today, man. Noah is like an amazing musician, one of the best blues players anywhere. So many questions and things that I want to ask you myself, but man, everybody, before we get started, just give a big round of applause for Noah. I've done quite a few of these clinics, and I've got some great talent in it, and this guy has a passion for it. Like, we've been going back and forth, and he's got like a whole presentation and stuff, so he's really prepared for this, so I think you guys are in for a real treat. And I know I'm in for a treat, so thank you guys. If you need anything, just let me know, but I'm going to turn it over to Noah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, sure, man.
I can't thank you guys enough for being here. It means a lot. I've spent basically my whole life pretty immersed in blues and blues guitar. Growing up in Dayton, I had a few great mentors. Tim Arnold, who when I met him, I was really just into Stevie Ray Vaughan, which I'm still into Stevie Ray Vaughan. But I started taking from him, and he wanted to show me who Stevie listened to. And so he kind of helped introduce me to Muddy Waters and Albert Collins and all the guys that influenced the modern era. And another guy, Shakin' Dave Hussong. I don't know if any of you guys knew Dave, but he was a vintage guitar dealer, and he also had a radio show for over 30 years on WYSO out of Antioch. And on Monday nights, I would try to do my homework, but would miserably fail because I would just get sucked into his 2-hour radio show. And I would tape them all. I still have the tapes. And he would throw in a lot of history, you know, in between songs. And so I was lucky to grow up around some great mentors in Dayton that shared a lot. And I'm going to do my best to just sort of do, blues is so deep and it's endless, but I'm going to kind of go through the main architects of electric blues guitar and dig into each artist's approach and some of the signature riffs and motifs that they used. And I've got a lot to cover, so hopefully I don't bore you. I can't think of a better place to start than T-Bone Walker. This is like my blues PowerPoint here. This is T-Bone, and he was from Texas, and he's arguably the first guy to really play like blues guitar solos, you know, improvised solos. There are guys that were sort of doing that around the same period, like Lonnie Johnson, but as far as being in front of a big band with an electric guitar, it starts with T-Bone, and he influenced a whole school of guitar players after him. Huge influence on Chuck Berry, and for that matter, rock and roll in general. Like this, all of this goes back to T-Bone Walker, and you know, and some chromaticism. Which, if you're not hip to chromaticism, that's just every note. So T-Bone, if you're playing like a Strat or Tele too, you can kind of emulate his sound by playing a tighter sound, like. He would use ninth chords a lot, like these. Sometimes to bring in the slow blues, he would go. He would use these diminished chords, which sound like, I always think of the silent movies with the damsel in distress, when the guy, you know, she's on the train tracks and you T-Bone would use those sort of for dramatic effects, so if like he's in a slow blues. kind of cool sound, or like on outros, like. So I'm gonna play a little backing track here just to illustrate sort of how T-Bone would solo over this slow blues here. Let's see if this will play. By playing in double time like that. So I hope that helps illustrate his thing a little bit. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm using these. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mike Welch. He's a guitar player from New England. He came up when he was young, like known as a blues prodigy. But he created these backing tracks. It's on Bandcamp, and it's called Mike Welch Blues Backing Tracks. And you got slow blues and shuffles, and it's really an awesome practice tool. Hey brother, good to see you, man. So that's about all I have to say about T-Bone Walker. I put on these outlines for you, some essential listening. The complete Imperial recordings are a great place to go. It's kind of the prime of his career, I would say. So I'm going to move on to B.B. King. And as I get older, it's like, doesn't cease to amaze me how just great B.B. was. Go right ahead.
Oh, just turn the backing track up just a smidge, bud.
Oh, you got it, man. You got it. So, B.B. came up, he was from Mississippi, and kind of got his career going in Memphis, and he was heavily influenced by T-Bone Walker, also Lonnie Johnson. And if you listen to early B.B. King, those influences are still pretty obvious. You know, it almost sounds like someone interpreting T-Bone. Let's say we're in C, same ideas but just branching out slightly. So, you know, but employing more of this box right above, which is still pentatonic. Once you get into the mid to late 60s, his playing starts to evolve, and you hear him employing more of what guitar players call the B.B. King box. So if you're in C and that's your 1, it would be like in your 4th position. So up what looks like F, and that whole idea is up here. I'm sure you've heard this. And theoretically speaking, that's pretty much playing in the relative minor. So if you're in C, the relative minor is A minor. You have those same notes here, but he's doing it up here. And as you get into the mid to late 60s with BB, his vibrato becomes like more and more expressive, and nobody can duplicate BB King's vibrato. It's kind of his fingerprint, you know. But you can. It's kind of like all on the wrist. And also, as his playing evolved, he got more and more into finding these little microtonal spots, all in this BB King box. And apparently he was really into listening to Mahalia Jackson, who was a female gospel singer. And that got into his playing, you know, and it just became more and more vocal. Sort of the notes in between the notes. So I'm going to play another slow blues, but in the style of BB. And I'm going to do the first time around kind of playing how he did in the early days. And then the second time around, more so like, let's say, Live at the Regal. Have you guys heard that record? Oh, yeah, I would hope so. It's kind of the textbook for dynamic blues guitar mastery, you know. That's where it's at. So I'll kind of go in more of that style the second time around. Am I moving at an okay pace?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that was another thing that he would do, kind of punctuate a certain part of the solo by hitting
His
the high,
favorite note.
Yeah, the high one, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the high octave. So you're way up here. So yeah, so I'm gonna.
Hey Noah, is he the first one to do that lick?
This high thing?
Yeah.
Man, I think you'd be safe to say it. I'm trying to think who else.
Because that's like a signature thing, man.
I know what you think of him.
Yeah, I've never heard T-Bone or any of his predecessors really
Yeah.
do it, so I think we'd be safe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move to Freddy King, one of my personal favorites. Man, check out that collar there, too.
70s.
That's him in the 70s.
60s, 70s, yeah.
With some of these guys, they had fairly long, he passed away way too young, but he had a fairly long career in that you can almost look at two major periods. There's the King Records period where he was recording here in Cincinnati and did all these iconic instrumentals, Hideaway, Sensation, you know, all the ones that Guitar Heroes would later cover. And then in the 70s, he was on Shelter Records, and Leon Russell was producing stuff for him, and his style got even more like 1970s almost rock band. I mean, that's a really rockin' band if you look on YouTube. They were touring with like Grand Funk Railroad, and he's kind of like a rock star in the 70s, you know, like tunes like Going Down, really hard driving, awesome stuff. But some things that kind of set his playing apart, he's coming from this same line we're talking about with T-Bone and BB. Very aggressive attack. He would use like metal finger picks, which contributed to that heavy attack. Freddy King, a lot of right hand muting. Those little arpeggiated rakes is a Freddy King thing. He would do these turnarounds that were kind of technical sounding to me. Say if you're in a shuffle. Some chromaticism, like. On some of his instrumentals, he would do these. He would use this 7th chord. I call it the hideaway chord. You've heard a. That sequence of thirds, you would call them. That's a very Freddy King thing. You know, I'm sure you guys are hip to Hideaway. What's cool is I got to know Philip Paul. I don't know if any of you knew Phil, but he was the session drummer on all that King Records stuff, all the Freddy King, as well as like Cowboy Copus and everything that went down in the 60s. I just learned today that Sean's dad is also a session drummer, which is incredible. But,
Sax player.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sure they played
He
it.
probably wish he was a drummer. I don't know.
Yeah, I just recently put on YouTube, I'd go over to Phil's house and interview him, and he talks a bit about Freddy King, and he said that, you know, super nice guy, just walk in, take his guitar out, and he'd play one of these ideas, you know. And band would join in, and about 2 takes later, they'd have a take. And it's like, what a beautiful way to create. Very unlabored, and they just did it. So, yeah, I put on there, if you want to get into Freddy King, he released 2 instrumental albums in the 60s. Yeah, Let's Hide Away and Dance Away, and the other one I think is called something like Bonanza or something goofy. But that stuff is awesome. Gonna move to Albert King here.
Good old Albert.
Oh man, Albert King. So he is just so bizarre, and there's no playing like Albert King really. One major factor is he's left-handed and played a right-handed guitar strung upside down. So instead of pushing to bend, he's pulling down. So already, sort of his voice is different, you know. And he'd also, I think, detune into. The jury's still out what he was using. You know, like some people say like C minor. And if you look on YouTube and try to make sense of what he's doing, it's like, good luck, man. It's like hieroglyphics. I mean, he starts here, and all of a sudden, where you would usually be here, he's doing that down here. I have no clue how he was tuned, but it definitely enabled him, since it was more slack, to make these ridiculous bends. They're like colossal bends. I think something like 2 whole steps and then another half step, you know? Very like a rubber band. And within these bends, he would break that into all these little microtonal riffs inside, bends within a bend, kind of. So Stevie Ray Vaughan was an Albert King freak, you know, just like obsessed with him and one of his main influences. And to sort of interpret or translate what he was doing to, let's say, a normal strung guitar like this, he would do the Albert King thing here. So if we're in G, or on Albert's guitar, he's doing all that just in this space here. So he's bending that string that high, 2 whole steps. But yeah, you can't do that. And Stevie would use these half-step little moves to kind of compensate for that, like. Another great blues guy, Mike Bloomfield, his way of translating that was to go to the 4th position, sort of like where your B.B. King box was. So you're here, but using that area to hit that. So, and doing the giant jump, but you've got more muscle and sort of flexibility here on the B string. So G. So you can kind of get into more of an Albert King real orientation right there, where you can get into those bends within the bend, you know. So I'm gonna play, 1 second here. Signature Albert King tune is Crosscut Saw. It's a rumba, and I'm gonna put this backing track. Here's the Mike Bloomfield way. I have on here essential listening. If you haven't heard Livewire Blues Power, that is like the best. I mean, to me, it's probably the most electrifying live blues guitar thing ever on the planet. It's the actual tune Blues Power. Another signature thing of Albert was the whole band would go into these stops, like saying a slow blues. Like, so we're do the same key. Cool. Keep moving along. You guys doing all right?
Yeah.
So, we're going to make it up to Chicago, but I want to do a detour to, there's a whole school of players associated with the Gulf Coast. And it's got, that whole school has a particular vibe and its own flavor. One thing that characterizes a lot of guys that played around Houston and Louisiana was the use of a capo. I'll get into it in a second, but I wanted to, everybody always mentions BB, Freddy, and Albert King as the three kings. There's a fourth king, Earl King, which if you haven't checked out, he's got some great stuff, and he had sort of a resurgence in his career in the 90s too with some awesome albums. And on Blacktop there's one called Sexual Telepathy that's got some amazing guitar and like very imaginative and sort of outside of the blues box. But one of his tunes was a thing called Come On, Let the Good Times Roll, and you're probably hip to that. On Electric Ladyland, Hendrix does a great cover. But so his version is a little bit more like, let's see, actually I might just play. Here's the original.
People see me, but they just don't know what's in my heart and why I love you so.
Slower and crazy.
I love you, baby, like a mine of gold. So come on, baby, let the good time roll.
Basic groove, but you know, when he gets into the solo and you can hear where Hendrix, you know, shaped some of the style, hearing like touch on him a little bit because he's not talked about nearly enough. Okay, Gabe Mouth Brown. So are you guys hip to Gabe Mouth? Yeah. So yeah, he was heavily influenced. He actually didn't like to be called a blues man. He grew up obsessed with big band music and Cajun stuff. He liked to be more considered Americana, or an ambassador of American music. And one of his main instrumental, actually, the way he got into the music industry was he went to see T-Bone Walker play at around age 24 or so. And T-Bone had an ulcer during his performance act up. So he left the stage, and Gatemouth obtained his guitar, and in front of his big band, like, proceeded to slay the whole place, you know. And the guy that owned the club is Don Roby, and so he signed Gatemouth to Peacock Records, and where he recorded this tune. It's called Okie Dokie Stomp. Kind of in the jump blues fashion, and some T-Bone Walker going on, but he's using a capo, or as my friends calls it, the Appalachian chord cheater. And something that's already setting him apart is he didn't use a pick, so everything you're hearing is first finger and thumb, you know. Check out some videos of Gatemouth playing. It's really wild. He's got this one tune called Pressure Cooker, which is just like Mach 10, and it's all his first finger pretty much. But you'll hear with these Gulf Coast players, they'll capo sometimes this high, and one of the main motifs or things you'll hear is sliding up to the root note on the B string and letting your high E ring. So this thing, you know, and if you're a little out of tune just right, it gives this great little mean, gnarly dissonance, you know. So you kind of see how these guys were finding their own voices by just mixing things up, you know, because essentially they're T-Bone Walker riffs, but you're kind of in a whole new ballpark with the capo on, and you've got this whole new flavor, really. Jimmy Vaughn in the last 20 years kind of reinvented his whole style. I don't know if you guys followed Jimmy, but he went from kind of straight blues playing, pretty conventional, I mean in a great way, but he kind of went to this whole Gulf Coast vibe. And so he's always got a capo on now, and you'll hear him doing a lot of thing by Gatemouth, where he's employing that sliding up on the B, and it just sounds, this is like the meanest intro to me. Check this out. Right? That just kills me, that intro. So yeah, and so he ends up influencing a whole school that is you know, related to this. One big one would be Guitar Slim. And he was like a killer showman. He had a giant long cord. He'd walk out in the crowd and dye his hair crazy colors. And but his one hit that he had was called "The Things That I Used to Do." Stevie Ray covered it. The original was produced by Ray Charles, and I think you actually hear Ray shout like "Yeah, man" or something at the end on the original recording. And Guitar Slim is sort of in the same bag of using the capo a lot, using his fingers. But on this tune, is sort of a whole new thing in that he's playing mostly like in a major orientation and using whole steps. So like if you're in F, it's thinking like this. And he'll go up to the 5th position with. And then as the solo builds, it'll be kind of a little more grittier as it goes, so he'll work in some more blue notes, like. So this is kind of over a waltzy R&B slow thing. It's like the bass is going. So I'll play this backing track here just to illustrate some guitar slam. That's the idea. It's real snappy.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it's a whole other flavor. So I'm gonna move right to Albert Collins. So we got Albert Collins fans.
Yeah. The fretless one there.
Yeah.
The Capo King.
Once again, like a total bizarre approach that, like, naturally I would never think that, you know, you have this whole guitar neck, but you're gonna take one of these and make half of it useless, you know? But I think these guys were all striving for a personal sound, and maybe just for survival's sake. I know when Albert Collins first went to a record label, they said he sounded too much like T-Bone Walker. So I think almost like necessity is the mother of invention. It's like, well, okay, well, T-Bone didn't use one of these, and I'm just gonna approach the thing a little differently. So he'd also use, apparently, an F minor tuning, which I've never. Have you ever messed with that? Yeah, I've never seen what that's like. But with Albert Collins, you got here's Guitar Slim, Johnny Guitar Watson, another Gulf Coast ace, you know, and then he in the 70s he went all funk and disco. Same guy. It's like he completely reinvented himself.
Following the money.
Yeah, he did well too. There's Albert Collins. So yeah, Telecaster, capo, anywhere between like the 5th, 7th, 8th fret. And he did a lot of these, like, once again, sort of snappy, just using his fingers, hammer-ons, like, that's hammering from, like, this is the 5th note to the 6th, to the root. These, what do you call it, like stingers, you know, going up to the root on the B string. He'd do these trills, like. double stops, like, or so, and he was a big fan of organ players, and that influenced his playing. I've got an Abercon style organ shuffle here, which actually you could still play in the style of Abercons without a capo on, just using your first finger more. So one little rhythmic thing I want to show that Albert would do that I think is genius is that he would go through a whole cycle of a 12 bar by just using this little dyad, part of the 7th chord, and he would just move it half steps. So the 1, and go to the 4, just a half step down. Very efficient. And then for the 5, 4. So, resourceful cat. So here's a little Abercon style over an organ shuffle here.
Primarily your thumb and your forefinger?
Once again, I think it's about 90% of the artists that I'll cover today didn't use a pick. And it was like just not until like the last 10 years I realized how few classic blues artists use a pick of some sort, you know, and there's really something to it. The sound of flesh on steel, it's less abrasive, you kind of be more dynamic.
But you've really got a great attack.
Oh man, I'm still working on it. A lot of it was just sitting around the house and being too lazy to find a pick. So I just sit on the couch and like learning them by default, I guess. So yeah, just a couple more things on the golf course. I hope we're doing cool time-wise. Slim Harpo, he played a little guitar, obviously, and harp. But he also had like a string of guitar players, and unfortunately I don't know the name of the guy that played on his classic hits. But just talking Gulf Coast and swamp blues, I had to mention Slim Harpo. A big characteristic of that kind of guitar would be a tremolo pedal, or a tremolo on your amp, which is, if you're not hip, sound. So like one of his main tunes was Scratch My Back. So it's something like a... Well, that tune, there's a guy, they call it the chicken scratch, you know, he'll go up here. So that's kind of one of his main tunes. Tina Nina Nu, which is like a boogaloo feel. So yeah, if you're not hip to Slim Harpo, check him out. You can hear his influence too, like on CCR, Southern rock.
Definitely.
But that's just beautiful music. So okay, we're gonna get to Chicago now. Early Chicago blues. A lot of guys were coming up from the South, from Mississippi, and the early days of electric Chicago blues, you would really look toward Jimmy Rogers, who played in Muddy Waters Band. Also Eddie Taylor, who played for Jimmy Reed. These sidemen were like big architects of what was going to come next, and they're sidemen, and they're not mentioned quite as much as the stars.
Bob Margolin?
Bob Margolin's another one, yeah. Bob played with Muddy.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna sort of do a mashup of Jimmy Rogers with Eddie Taylor. So we're talking, this is like early Chicago electric blues, which isn't that far removed from the country blues of the South, because that's where they're coming from. So you're just amplified now, and a little bit of the city is kind of getting into the music, you know. So here's something in that style. Jimmy Rogers, Eddie Taylor, school. Check out early Muddy Waters. Any Muddy Waters. I even like Electric Mud. I mean, you can't really go wrong. And then all the Jimmy Reed stuff, That's Jimmy Reed. But Eddie Taylor, his other guitar player, was a big deal. Another serious, most important sideman during this period is Hubert Sumlin. You guys hip to Hubert? So I was lucky enough to get to know Hubert, and we recorded together. We played shows, and he was over at the house. He was so crazy humble, considering like who he influenced and where he had been. You just never know what he had done. I mean, he was super sweet and funny, and I got a signature on the back of my headstock here. It's kind of fading, but it's one of the great joys of my life is to get to know him. He played for Howlin' Wolf. The story is when he was a kid, he snuck over to a juke joint to see the Wolf, and he was looking down like on one of those rooftop windows, like down on the bandstand. No, that's not right, I'm sorry. He was standing on coat crates outside of a window, and somehow or other he fell through the window onto the stage, And like from that minute on, like Wolf adopted him just about. And Hubert would follow Wolf to Chicago and start his career and for recording for Chess. The thing with Hubert is he did use his fingers, and that's a huge part of his sound. But at first he was using a pick, and Wolf took him aside and said, "Man, you're playing all over my singing. You need to like slow down, lose the pick." And Hubert said he went home and he's like crying and he's in bed and he's like thinking about this whole thing, and then all of a sudden he picked up his guitar and he's like, "I found my sound," you know, and it was all going to just using his fingers on his right hand. So bizarre, wild guitar stuff. Like if you haven't listened to Howlin' Wolf, that's my favorite blues band is Hubert with the Wolf. It's so weird and oddball and great. So Killing Floor is like a signature thing. I know you guys have heard this riff. Covered by countless people. It's even the Ren and Stimpy theme song. And so it's like in the consciousness of the world. But so no pick. On the original recording, you had Buddy Guy on an acoustic guitar, Willie Dixon on bass, and Hubert doing this funky rhythm stuff. So it's like, am I too loud, by the way?
No.
All right. That's the bass. That's you know, his whole rhythm deal, super funky. When I first played with him, my drummer, we went up to the side, he's like, "Man, it's like playing with a really funky conga player." You know, he's just like all this polyrhythmic, cool stuff. I was so naive when I first met Hubert, I offered him a pick. It was like, God, every blues player with his salt knows that this guy is not that. And he just went, I went like that, and he went, "Yeah, it's all right here, I'm good." But so yeah, funky rhythms, and then like his solos were like, sound like really elastic, like a rubber band. Like he'll do these like. So even his vibrato is kind of real funky and slinky sounding, you know? Real expressive. And then a lot of, I think, are they called glissandos? Just like slides up the neck, you know? Very playful. So he made all these iconic guitar riffs. He was like a riff king, you know, and definitely influenced these guys immensely. Actually, I think they got into some trouble for using the riff to Killing Floor. They stole a bunch of stuff. I'm not here to put down Zeppelin, I love Zeppelin. But like this tune, Smokestack Lightning. It's all in one, never changes. It's just all E minor, so you get in this kind of hypnotic trance thing. And the solo on that, Hubert's just, you know, wailing. It sounds like someone crying, you know. That's kind of Hubert Sumlin in a just scratching the surface. So I'm gonna move into what I call like the 3 most iconic Chicago blues. Let's see, I'm behind on my pictures here. Here's Buddy Guy. So I'm sure you guys are all hip to Buddy Guy. Huge influence on Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, kind of the modern era of electric blues.
I played with Buddy a couple times.
Wow,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing, man. Yeah, what can you say?
And the old legends, not the new one.
Oh, the old one. With that,
Wells on Wells Street.
Right. What's the Wabash now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all commercialized.
Was he nice? With Dwarf?
Commercialized.
Oh yeah.
He does this in January, every
Oh
year.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's you're kind of getting into this period of time now with the next 3 I'm going to talk about, Buddy Guy, Magic Sam, Otis Rush, where they're taking from those early guys we discussed, but it's becoming, for lack of better terms, like more athletic, just more kind of looseness and versatility on the neck. And one thing I want to point out about Buddy was he would play like organ licks using these dyads. So like if you're in C, these here. He would use some chromaticism, these kind of very frantic sounding riffs. I think that's probably coming down from T-Bone. And then just really frantic, wild guitar stuff. Like he would do this thing, I call them like flurries, you know, out of the pentatonic box, like and these crazy overbends, like. So I'm gonna play just a little bit of slow blues in the style of Buddy. Let's see here. I think I had it. So this is D minor. Or this here. That's an organ lick, you know? Playing around with those thirds. Top of his 9th chord there. He'll do BB too, but it's just like a lot of coffee or something. I'm not sure. Kind of my version of Buddy Guy there. So, yeah. Put pictures up. All right. Magic Sam. So he was from Mississippi, got up to Chicago, and another guy that didn't use a pick. Buddy Guy did use a pick, and still does. Magic Sam's all fingers. He kind of developed what was called like the West Side sound, which is kind of rougher hewn. Let's say if you like, one of his big tunes was All Your Love, which is like. And he'd use this chord for a fourth chord. I think it's a form of the seventh. That's kind of how he'd play over a slow blues. So
Very cool.
very aggressive fingers. One of his signature tunes is this thing called "Looking Good" that I've been working on for years and still don't quite have it. But he, it sort of comes up from like the boogie tradition, like John Lee Hooker. I'm sure you heard like "Boogie Chillin'" or "Feeling Good" by Junior Parker. But so this is a version of "Looking Good" here. There's a great video Magic Sam played over in Europe for a part of this blues tour, and it seemed like he never had his own guitar, with like all these stories I've read. So Earl Hooker, another great Chicago blues guy, let him borrow his, it's like a Vox, Univox guitar, looks like a Les Paul, and so Magic Sam's up there playing, and he's got Earl Hooker and those truck stop stickers, you know, and it's an amazing performance. So yeah, that's kind of, that's Magic Sam. There's Hubert, Muddy. No, I had a picture of Otis Rush in here somewhere, maybe not. So Otis Rush is one of my personal favorites. I got to see him a few times. He was another one that played a right-handed guitar strung upside down, left-handed player. So he's just like Albert King, pulling down instead of pushing up. And also that thing of being strung upside down it gave him these weird arpeggiated chords. Like there's this thing he came up with on a minor blues, say, this sound. And it just sounds to me, because he's playing sort of in reverse, even like his usual riffs like are more sort of webbed together and arpeggiated because he's raking down, like he's kind of famous for his minor blues. So like if you're in D minor, he would use the tops of these minor chords, like a D minor, and shake it. And he's got one of his main tunes is All Your Love I Miss Love, and it's got this like he shakes those the top of those minor chords like. You get the idea though. So another Otis thing, which I didn't get hip to later, was sometimes he would, Muddy Waters' slide approach is kind of like this sound. Otis would emulate the sound of a slide without using a slide. So he would do these little half-step bends. Bizarre. So I'll play a little bit in the style of Otis Rush. This would be like over a shuffle. Rough idea of Otis. Well, cool. So I'm going to move into some slide guitar here. And staying in Chicago, Muddy Waters definitely comes to mind. And in his early days, I think more so, like when he was in Mississippi, he would use open A tuning, like on Rollin' and Tumblin', that kind of early stuff. But later he would play more in standard tuning. And the way I look at the way he was sort of viewing the neck, so for an E, you have an E here, this bar chord, right? So that's kind of the meat here. And then if you kind of look at it like this L shape, branching off of that chord, hitting the high B and the high E, I would call that like the Muddy Waters box. So that's kind of a roadmap. Granted, you've got some chromaticism built in, like on the B string here. And I'll show you what I mean. So just sliding up to that not hip to playing slide, the main thing really is to not press down too hard. Usually higher action and thicker strings, the better tonally. But also, you're not sliding in between the fret bars, you're sliding right on top, but not pressing down. So you're just kind of gliding over the fretboard. So E would be here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then as you go along, you work on getting your vibrato with your wrist. So once again, Muddy Waters looked at it like this. So we're in E, and he would open up this tune or a solo by going up to these high two strings, like. That's kind of him, the essence of his style, and going chromatic from that B down to sliding into that chord. Does that make sense?
Use your thumb to deaden the string more so it doesn't.
What's funny is I don't think about it, but was I?
I mean, just look like that.
I was just watching Robin Ford talking about muting, and he was like, however you can get it done, whatever works for you. So for me, it's a combination of using my palm pretty unconsciously. I'm just deadening whatever I don't want to hear. That might take some time if you're just starting. But also, if you're fretting a note and you want to mute it, you just lift off it slightly off the fretboard. In that scenario, were you talking kind of like... So I'm using my palm a ton to mute strings I don't want to hear. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I'm using my first finger, really, and I'm just not pressing that far down. I'm just muting here from behind the slide. I've never thought about it. And you would play down in the first position a little bit too with... Actually, quick detour. Another guy from this era, Robert Nighthawk, was also a slide player, and he played a lot in this flavor, but maybe nothing against Muddy Waters. Gets struck by lightning. Robert had kind of more of finesse, a little more technical. He'd also use a slide to play chords, like a 7th or the 9th chord. Here we go. Kind of cool. But Robert would play down in his first position a lot. He would sound something like. His vibrato was slower, like molasses, real smooth. Like a lot of blues artists, it seems like their guitar was a reflection of the way they sang, Muddy's a bit more rough-hewn, it's real direct and emotional. No pretension, is like, get what you got. And he would, I'm gonna go around a couple times in the style of Muddy Waters and just show you kind of how he built things dynamically. The first time around it's kind of like, hey, how you doing? And then the second time he really gives it to them. So be like
my God.
Does that all kind of make sense? His roadmap? That helped me a lot when I was first getting into slide. We doing okay time-wise?
It's about 120.
Okay. Does that mean how much?
So we said two-ish, two.
Oh, beautiful. You guys hanging in there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't tell if it's like I have like a crew of people held captive. Blabbing on about. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity.
What are you gonna try and sell us later, though?
I got nothing. I just brought free swag for everybody, man.
Selling us some blues, man.
I'm sure there's something in my van I could drum up. I'm going to move into some more slide stuff and just talk about open tuning. My favorite over the years has been either open D, which is just a D chord, or even lower C sharp. And as far as open tuning slide in the electric era, Elmer James is like your guy. Big influence on the Allman Brothers. They've covered quite a few of his tunes. So this is kind of like, and when you're open tuning, it makes things easier in a sense, because instead of worrying about any kind of nonlinear box, you're just sliding up to the 12th fret, like if you're in open D here. So that's fun already.
Now, do you put thicker strings on that guitar when you slide?
Yeah, I would recommend if you're going in this direction or want to play around with this kind of thing, heavier strings. I think I have 11 to 52, you know. Yeah, you'll just get more sustain and tone out of the thing. So Elmore would, slide up like. Check out the box set King of the Slide Guitar. There's so much great stuff on there. And the atmosphere of that music, the old plate reverb, whatever they're using, it's just so atmospheric. The original Sky is Crying, that kicks off. It's super haunting and awesome stuff. I'm going to move over to Hound Dog Taylor, who... If you guys have heard of Alligator Records, he was like the first artist, the first release they had. There's Elmore, looking cool. He played like